delays, disruption, the idle time, the wasted fuel, the additional emissions, the pollution, and the loss of productivity. These are significant considerations for those of us in the business environment. And last but not least, we are a thirsty planet. We are a very thirsty planet, and the demand for water and water-related issues is only going to increase. Think about this. Half of all the hospital beds in the world today are filled with people with water-related illnesses. The US and France, which does use nuclear power, has had to shut down their power generating facilities on several occasions due to lack of water for the cooling towers. Coca-Cola had to temporarily suspend manufacturing operations in India because they didn't have water. And agricultural activities in Southeast Australia have been significantly curtailed due to extreme drought. Water underpins all of our social and economic activities. Water is such a key component. And many of our industries, be it paper, pulp, textile, beverage, manufacturing, chip manufacturing, all depend on a large amount of water to run their manufacturing process. As the world's population continues to grow, both the personal requirement and the manufacturing demand is going to continue to increase. And yet today, 60% of all the water distributed is lost to leaks and inefficiencies within the system. We cannot conserve if we are content with a leaky faucet. So how do we express all this? Well, we express this in terms of the carbon footprint. The carbon footprint is a measure of cumulative greenhouse gas emissions per person, per ton, per year. Scientists say to be at a sustainable level, we want to be at about 3 tons per person per year. If you look down on the lower right of the slide, you can see the US is just shy of 25 tons. The UK not far behind at 14 tons. We have a long way to go. If we looked at just the atmosphere that we all share, scientists have also said kind of the tipping point, that point of no return, that we need to be under 350 parts per million to maintain the health and vitality of our planet. Today, we are at 384. We're actually up at 390. This slide's a little outdated. Think about this. The US is only 4% of the world's population, and yet we contribute 23% of the world's carbon footprint. If developing nations were to consume as we do, we would need 5 planet Earths worth of resources to sustain us all. Clearly, that's not going to work. So this tells us everything we do or don't do has an impact. Everything we produce or consume has an impact. Any action we take has a chance to move us in a positive direction or a negative direction. Each of us needs to think about our personal and our professional commitment to create a more sustainable planet. So let me switch gears for a second and set a little context. Companies are absolutely being buffeted by changing laws and regulations. Companies are being pressured by increasing shareholder and stakeholder expectations. The emergence of the ethical consumer in conjunction with the internet is driving change and pressure on our businesses unlike any time in the past. And what trends are we seeing? 25% of consumers now say they will switch brands if they are offered a more ethical alternative. 50% of companies are now pushing green initiatives, eco-friendly initiatives, social responsibility initiatives, and sustainable initiatives down to and through their supply chain, their business partners, and their dealings with third parties. 50% of RFPs now include criteria for sustainability and green initiatives as part of their selection process. The times they are a-changing. 5 out of 6 CEOs today no longer subscribe to the notion that a company's primary or sole purpose is to generate and maximize profit. Now, don't get me wrong, I am not suggesting by any means that companies are not about making money. We certainly are. But what I am suggesting is that social responsibility and sustainable profitability are interconnected. In other words, doing good is good for business. And businesses, when done right, reap the rewards. They attract top talent, they strengthen their brand image, they enable and improve their ability to move into new markets, they minimize risk, and ultimately all of these benefits lead to sustainable and more profitable growth. Can we advance the slide? This is... He's crawling back up there. We've gone from a universe that once suggested buyer beware. We now operate in a universe that suggests seller beware because your buyer is aware. The internet has created the ethical consumer access, and there are people out there with access to and a desire for more detailed information than they have ever had in the history. They want to know everything about the product, the point of manufacturing, the materials used, the manufacturing process, the labor force included, and they use this information in making decisions about which products they will buy. The internet has created the ethical consumer activists, and it is changing the way companies operate. Just a recent story. Many of you have seen in the paper, perhaps over the last 2 months, Nestle's. Nestle's was hammered by Greenpeace on the social networks for their sourcing strategies with suppliers that were not using sustainable forest initiatives and were impacting the tropical rainforest in Borneo and further threatening the orangutan, a currently endangered species. They first attempted to respond by deny, diffuse, defend, kind of put that little marketing spin control. The harder they fought it, the more viral the social attack went. And you could see it immediately, both in stock price and consumer behavior. So Nestle's got it, and they got it fast, and they have now implemented a sustainable sourcing initiative and have indicated they will not buy or source their products, and they're one of the top 100 brands in the world, with suppliers that are not contributing to sustainable practices. It's a huge, huge deal. Whoop, let me back. Can you back me up one, please? There. Sorry about that. So Thomas Friedman wrote a book, The World is Flat. That was his metaphor for suggesting that technology has leveled the global economic playing field. And in fact, it has. We are now operating in a world where people are communicating, they're collaborating, they're coordinating, and they are competing globally. Work is now moving to where it can be done and where people want to do it. Those seamless borders, seamless marketplace has given individuals unprecedented reach, access, scope, and global impact. We are an instrumented planet. In 2001, there were 60 million transistors for every person on Earth, and now there's over 1 billion. We are instrumented, we are interconnected, we are transmitting data. Take a look at RFIDs. There are over 30 billion RFIDs on the planet alone today. So we are instrumented, and we are interconnected. 4.6 billion people with cell phones, over 2 billion people on the internet, 500 million people on social networks, from MySpace to Facebook to Twitter to iReport to YouTube to you name it. We are interconnected. We are interacting, and we are interdependent. But in all of that, we can continue to operate in a more effective and a more efficient fashion. Sustainability and the whole notion of sustainability can be benefited from the technology that we have before us today, because we have tons and tons of data. It's not just the amount of data that we have that is so important. It's what we do with it. It's how we use it. It's the analytics that we apply so that we can make better decisions, so we can be more effective, we can be more efficient, and we can continue to optimize, and optimize across multiple industries, multiple sectors. And in this regard, supply chain professionals play such an incredibly, incredibly influential and significant role. So sustainability. What is sustainability? Well, the definition that is used by the Institute of Supply Management basically says it is to consume resources we require today in a fashion that we are not undermining the ability of future generations to have access to the resources that they need. And we look at this from a social, from an environmental, and an economic perspective, what many of you have seen as the triple bottom line. Because it does not make sense for a business to pour all its resources and investment into just protecting the environment if 5 years from now the business would not be there. The whole notion of sustainability is sustainable in its essence. And to do that and to accomplish that, businesses must stay in business, they must maintain their profitability, but we want to balance those social, environmental, and economic requirements. So what does that do, and how is that translated to the procurement professional? Our jobs, as I've said, have never been more challenging or complex. Where you used to focus on cost, quality, and service, you now must focus on cost, quality, service, and carbon. Companies that include and embed carbon as an element of their sourcing strategies will, in fact, be competitive in the future. But you need to look at it with respect to the entire supply chain. Issues regarding and beginning right with product design. When I was flying down here, it was so interesting because I read this article on talk about product design and one you thought might never be able to change. Here's a product whose design has not changed in 100 years. Toilet paper. Toilet paper is now going tubeless. Kimberly-Clark, under pressure from consumers to become more green, is coming out with the first tubeless toilet paper roll. In the US alone, there's 160 million pounds of the tube waste every single year, and most people toss the tube rather than work to recycle it. You could stretch the tubes thrown out in the US, placed end to end, would extend over 1 million miles from here to the moon and back twice. So from packaging design to the manufacturing process to what we're doing to reduce the water content and consumption, all of the challenges with logistics and transportation and the fuel involved and the carbon footprint included, Supply chain professionals must look at the entire supply chain and work very diligently to take a holistic, comprehensive view so that you are not just influencing or altering one small piece of the supply chain, but having a negative overall consequence throughout the entire supply chain. And where do you start? You start with setting policies. Policies set the expectation, they get the team on board, they drive us in a consistent fashion. Policies do not need to be complex, and I actually suggest simple and clear is better. IBM, just in March of this year, actually issued a new policy to all 28,000 of our approved suppliers that they will, in fact, adopt a sustainable management system. It's not a one-size-fits-all, but what we've said is you must implement a sustainable management program. You must focus on energy, water, conservation, carbon footprint reduction, and end-of-life project management. You must also set goals and publish them. And you must make available your progress against those goals, not just to IBM, but make your progress on that journey available and transparent to everyone. Or, if you choose not to, as my mother once said, you are judged by the company you keep, IBM will not do business with you. So that's a huge, huge statement. Not too dissimilar from the program that Walmart launched last year with their Green Supplier Report Card. So you are seeing companies moving in that direction. Now, two of the most common questions I get asked, yes, Kathy, that's all good, but all these programs cost money, and the economy's bad, and I'm not sure I can afford to implement. Well, you'll see studies show that for leaders in this area, not only are they doing the right thing for the right reasons, they are reaping the rewards. The top leaders that have moved forward in making these changes with regard to sustainability, which, oh, by the way, I translate to supply chain's new cost takeout, cost savings program, is realizing and reaping some fairly significant benefits in the short term, within 1 year, across a wide range of supplies and commodities as far as energy, facilities, logistics, and the like. The next question is, yes, but don't these programs conflict with my chief procurement officer's objectives? Cost reduction, supply chain integrity, governance, and staff capability. There is probably no better way to address the chief procurement officer's requirements and business priorities than to focus and think with a sustainable mindset. Clearly, demand side reduction, reducing energy requirements, reducing waste and inefficiencies leads to some fairly dramatic cost savings that can then either help improve margins or be plowed back in for additional innovation. Integrity, no better way to preserve and protect the integrity of our supply chain with respect to limited resources than to focus on what's going on with these resources today. Governance, we've all seen a tremendous amount going on for new requirements for transparency and accountability. And I think social responsibility is just reinforcing and providing a good forum to accomplish that. And then last but not least, developing the skills and attracting the skills that you need. Ethical companies today are attracting the top talent as opposed to those that don't offer a platform in this regard. And what better way to address the whole notion of sustainability than to think about creating and bringing up the next generation? So just kind of in closing, Professor Dooley out of Arizona State, who is probably one of the top supply chain professionals, I think said it very, very well. Companies will be judged by the company they keep. How companies work and collaborate with their suppliers and pass down the values to suppliers. As we look at the Carbon Disclosure Project at Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3, how companies lead, how we influence, and how we cascade those expectations down to the suppliers we use will be key and critical in the future. So the challenges that we face, I think, are significant. The issues on hand are real. These are really tough problems, but it's a journey. It's a journey. What we need to do is think with a sustainable mindset, adopt a sustainable lifestyle, start to create sustainable business models. It's how you personalize it, it's how you professionalize it, and it's how you institutionalize it. We can't do everything, but we can get started, and we can do everything we can. So I encourage you, much like Mahatma Gandhi had said, be the change in the world you wish to see. Thank you.
A Catherine é vice-presidente global da IBM e é do Conselho de Sustentabilidade e Responsabilidade Social do ISM, que é uma das mais respeitadas entidades de suprimentos do mundo. Eu nem apresento ela mais, porque a Catherine eu já considero ela como de casa.